Well, guys, you are in for quite the treat tonight. In fact, this gentleman has stood me up twice in a row. Third time's a charm, I suppose. But I thought this wasn't going to happen. To be honest with you. Why don't you give a big comics are dope welcome to the man himself, Mr. Christopher Priest? How's it going, Priest?
Hello, Brandon. I appreciate your patience and I do apologize. I think the first time I fell asleep, I don't remember what happened the second time. I don't remember what happened the second time. But today I was bound and determined that when you logged on, I was here. And in fact, I was on time and you were late.
Yeah, you
So
were here first. You
there
were here
you go.
first. I got an email that said like, "Hey, I swear on my life I will be here," and I was like, "Hey, that's okay. You don't have to put your life on the line. It's all good. It's all good."
That's it.
But yeah, there's been a lot going on since last we spoke, and since we were scheduled to speak. One of the more surprising bits that we got was Superboy-Prime meeting Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like that, I'm going flipping through, and I'm like, "There's a priest story in here," and
Yeah. Yeah.
Superboy.
It kind of shocked me too. I kind of got talked into it. I was like, who? Superboy-Prime, like, who? you know, but yeah, it was a fun story. Uh, it's a character who kind of lives outside, allegedly lives in the real world, and he thinks that Spider-Man, he tells Spider-Man, technically you don't exist,
Right.
but it was just kind of fun to play those two characters off each other and to kind of just revisit Spider-Man again. It was nice of, DC and Marvel to kind of let me, revisit Spider-Man and put words in his mouth again and make him funny. Hopefully, I thought it was funny. Hopefully make him funny. And so it was it was a nice little adventure.
Yeah, it was. It was a fun team up, right? And you probably have like the most iconic Spider-Man team up, right? You've got Spider-Man and Wolverine. Um,
Yeah.
in addition to Superboy Prime and Black Suit Spidey. I'm curious as to like what you feel makes a comic book team up like work.
I think it's a contrast of values, a contrast of voices, and you just kind of go, well, uh, I think Tom DeFalco, who used to be the editor in chief of Marvel Comics, Tom taught me to make two lists, make a list of the attributes of character A and a list of character attributes of character B, and see where they intersect, see where they agree, see where they conflict. Just by doing that exercise, you'll find your story in there somewhere. So if you have one character like Superboy Prime who just thinks that Spider-Man doesn't exist, and you have a character named Spider-Man who just kind of thinks Superboy is crazy. Well then you have you set the stage for for some humorous moments, and then this contest of values where Superboy starts out kind of he's using Spider-Man. He's trying to get home,
Mm.
so he kind of at first, he's really not being much of a hero, let's put it that way. Because Superboy Prime started out as a villain. If you
Mm.
know the character, he was not really a hero at all. He was actually kind of dangerous. So for a few pages at least, he's kind of reverting to type until Spider-Man's values kind of get to him,
Hmm.
and he makes a turn about halfway through the story, and they end up having to, of course, team up to solve the problem. So there's just those edges that you kind of cling to and build on.
Nice, nice. Now, the nerdy question I had: who chooses which comics these guys are jumping out of and into? Right, like there's all sorts of absolute stuff and like recent books and not so recent books on the page. Are you like going through like, all right, we're gonna jump out of Secret Wars or jump out of Spider 252, and then we're gonna jump into Absolute Superman #9, and like, or is that just like a DC graphic design decision?
I had nothing to do with it. That was all my artist Daniel Semperi. that I just gave our editor in chief, Marie Javins, I gave Marie my proxy and said, whatever you and Daniel decide is perfectly fine with me. And they kind of plotted all that out and chose those particular pages. And I think it was a real challenge for the production team to kind of line all that up and digitize it and get it in there. And they just did a spectacular job. I couldn't be happier. They did just a great job with it.
You know what's amazing? There wasn't a snafu where it was like, but now we have to pay the writer and artist of that page because they drew it that one time and it's going to show up at. Oh, okay.
I don't know how this works. When I was writing Black Adam, there was an issue of Black Adam, I think it was seven, that began with a page from Justice League number 75 by Joshua Williamson. And in that page, Black Adam, he says Shazam, and he falls from the sky as his alter ego, as Theo Teth. He says Shazam. He falls from the sky and collapses. And the page was drawn by Rafa Sandoval, who was drawing Black Adam. He was my Black Adam artist. So I was like, okay, that's perfect. The colorist and the artist, that these are the same guys that are doing the Black Adam series. The writer's different. It's Joshua's work, but it was just brilliant. The page was so brilliant. I was like, well, instead of recreating it, why don't we just reprint that page? So the editor and I decided to reprint that page, and oh boy, did that cause all kind. I mean, the bean counters lost their mind because they're like, well, now we have to track the royalties, and we have to, how do we divvy this up, and how do we, because now you got one page in here by Joshua Williamson, and the rest of the book is by you, but we have to account for that one page. So 3.5 cents, have to go to Joshua or whatever the story was. And it just made him nuts. And it became this enormous controversy. But at the end of the day, I thought it was worth it because the story, the first thing you see is this page from where this kid is wondering, well, where's Black Adam? Black Adam's gone missing. And then you turn the page and you see this page from Justice League 75, and you see why Black Panther, Black Adam has gone missing. And it's the literal page from the book. And I thought that worked so much better than us redrawing it or recapping it. So how we get away with this in the Superboy-Prime story, that's anybody's guess. But don't call me. I have I had no choice in the matter.
Nice. So yeah, I think those were all of my questions about this Superboy-Prime team up. But that's fun, like, because that's got to be one of the biggest issues of the year. And then another big celebratory issue, you did a story in the Black Panther 60th anniversary special.
Yep.
Where Black Panther and Magneto, is he Magneto to you or Magneto?
No, he's definitely Magneto. He's always been Magneto.
Okay. I mean, some people say Magneto, and I'm like, where did that come from?
Yeah, I seek therapy. No, it's Magneto.
So we got T'Challa and Magneto, and I love that Magneto is just like really trying to like goad T'Challa into this response, like, hey man, these are your oppressors. Like, you should just go. Like, they're oppressing you currently. Like, why are we playing this song and dance? Like, that's fun.
But it's also, it's just T'Challa's way where, like, we're letting, Magneto have the stage, and Magneto's doing all this talking, and he's like it seems like he's manipulating Shala, and he's like, gassing on and on. Oh, my farts are or don't speak, don't stink, and he's got this master plan, and he's leading T'Challa around by his nose, and then at some point his own paranoia like gets to him where he starts to think, wait a minute, I bet you set some sort of trap for me, So Magneto has talked himself into, basically defeating into his own defeat or whatever. And it was kind of, this is how I see T'Challa. I see T'Challa as being the smartest guy in the room and a guy who's always 5 steps ahead of his enemies, and any Black Panther story you read by me, you're going to see, if it's 3 acts, like a 3-act play, you'll see act 1, act 2, where T'Challa seems to be at a disadvantage or even being sort of pushed around, like this 60th anniversary story,
Mm.
But you get up into the third act and you start to see all the mouse traps snapping shut, and you start to realize that Panther had this plan all along, and that the bad guy has fallen prey to him. What was fun to me about that story was two things. One is that it got to resolve uh, a bit of business from my run where we had given Black Panther. T'Challa had an inoperable brain aneurysm
Mm.
right around the time that I left the series, and he abdicated the throne and vanished for a while. And this guy Casper Cole was starting to run around as Black Panther. It was a whole different thing with Casper Cole. And at some point in the Casper Cole story, T'Challa shows up, and he looks like Childish Gambino, and he's kind of like a little out of his head, and he's he has grown his hair back, but it's like he's forgot to comb it, and it's he's just kind of out in his own world. So I wanted that guy. I wanted to deal with the aneurysm. So this story takes place during that time of continuity
Mm.
where T'Challa shows up and he's kind of he kind of looks like you when you roll out of bed in the morning. Well, I don't know. I've never been with you when you roll out of bed in the morning. I'd
That's
imagine when you roll out of bed in the morning. Um, and and there's this fancy restaurant. And they don't want to let him in because he looks kind of disheveled and he's got that vacant look in his eyes. That is so brilliantly done by Mr. Glover, that so at any rate, it's just it's a fun story, and it deals with the aneurysm, but in the continuity, it has a nice little contrast between Shala and Magneto, and I thought the artist, whose name I completely forgot because didn't prepare,
mm.
I'm so sorry, but brilliantly done in the art, particularly how he handled Shala. And it was just a lot of fun. I'm glad I got a chance to do that.
Yeah, no, it's fun seeing you revisit that time period, right? Like, and I'm sure it was great for you, you know, not having people on your back about who's on Wakanda's throne at the moment, But the other thing, though, another thing that because no, I'll talk about it now, right? So I don't know if you're aware of this, but I pretty much took off the month of March. Like February was like really busy because I try to talk about all the Black stuff during Black History Month. So I've got a million videos out, and I was like tired. And then it was just like other stuff going on. So I was like, you know what? In March, I'm going to talk about the weekly comics, and that's it. No long form videos. And lo and behold, a whole protest movement jumps up, right? Like, and everybody's like talking about like, how there's no Black ongoings, and what are we doing for Black History Month, and what are we doing for Milestone, and why are there not indie people getting this love, and all the things, right? And I was just like, man, I don't remember the last time I've seen so many Black people so angry about comics on the internet. And then I was like, I know exactly the last time I remember seeing that. And it was when Marvel Knights The World to Come issue #1 came out.
I knew it.
And it's just like, yeah, that's the last time I'd seen folks this riled up on the internet. But I'm curious, right? Like, because in this month that I took off,
Mhm.
I was honestly like, okay, I'm kind of glad I don't have to like deal with any of this. I'm sure it'll have blown over by the time I'm offline or back online. But what did you make of all of this groundswell? First for the Dakota incident, and then kind of everything that became fallout of it.
Well, the support for the Dakota incident, I thought, was just really important, and it demonstrated that the power of that consumers have when they make their voices heard. And it was really important that a lot of content creators explained the concept of final order cutoff, the FOC, and they may have heard that term a few times and not really understood what it meant or why it was relevant. Because when you buy comics or when you call your retailer after the final order cutoff, you are helping out the retailer by buying something off of their stock or buying something off their wall if they have a copy on their wall. Okay, but if you order the comic or you let the retailer know you want the comic before final order cutoff, now you're sending the message. Now you're also messaging the publisher as well. So you're helping your LCS, but you're also helping the publisher, and you're messaging the publisher that this comic has meaning. We want to see more of these characters, etc. So, certainly that whole movement for the Dakota incident and and for all the support that was raised with that, that was very important and important to do. Um, on the other side of that, I, you know, I guess I'm a little uncomfortable with the idea of. Uh, I think if we want to see more representation in comics, calling a publisher racist is probably not the best way to go about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there is a fundamental misunderstanding that uh, publishers are in the business to make money. Okay, and I think uh, like Death Row Records, they were distributed by Interscope. Is that correct? Do you remember? Yeah, it's
Yes.
Interscope, I
Mm-hmm.
think. So so Interscope, worked out this deal for Death Row with Suge Knight and whoever else, you know, um, not because they wanted to do outreach in the black community. They were trying
Mm-hmm.
to make money,
Mm-hmm.
and they found a way to make money, big money, and through this emerging new vehicle that Death Row was so good at. Um, when we were developing Milestone over at DC Comics, this wasn't DC trying to do outreach or trying to do the black people a solid, let's put out some, it wasn't even about as much about representation either.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing a business deal. We were trying to make money. We were trying to, the conversation that I had with Paul Levitz was about expanding DC's market share, because the newsstand was disappearing, and uh, almost all of the distribution was now turning over to Diamond distributors at that time. So everything was kind of going through this eye of the needle at Diamond, which is problematic. Is if you're DC or Marvel, you have to look and go, okay, so now we're really beholden to Diamond, to get our product out there. So the conversation I was having was like, it wasn't so much, yes, obviously, we want to do black characters. Yes, we want to tell our stories. Of course we do. Okay. But we also want, to open up a new artery of blood flow for DC. So they're not completely, beholden to Diamond. We wanted to be in the distribution chain with Double XL or Source,
Mm-hmm.
Vibe magazine, Ebony Jet. Let's see if we can make some sort of deal with the companies that distribute those products and get our books to the audience that is prepared to see them. Now, for some reason, that agenda did not get translated to the marketing department. I'm not sure what happened. I don't want to blame anybody. Most of those people don't work there anymore, so I don't know what happened, except that marketing part. We did our part. We created the IP. We developed, the creative.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the ball got dropped at the marketing part, and instead of us finding these new ways into the $1 billion black community and the $1 billion Latino community, instead of them making a real effort, a real push to get into places of worship and barbershops and beauty shops and bodegas and places where these communities assemble, they just took the Milestone product and just dumped it into Diamond, which
Mm-hmm.
is which was mind blowing to me because Diamond was not prepared to support. It's a distribution system that's not prepared to support something like the Milestone Project. So the reality is, while we want diversity and we want to tell our stories, we have to entertain everybody. I've seen too many, particularly creators of color, who now want to make their statement. Let me make my statement. And they're creating this beautiful work, and it's great tone and it's well done. It's a terrific craft. But it's not talking to everybody.
Mhm.
Okay. Yes, we want to talk to our people, but if you're going to put it into this distribution system is not micro targeting. This is a general distribution system that distributes to everybody. So we must write stories and create stories that are accessible to everybody, that are entertaining for everybody. And I think that's the real challenge. Until we are able to not just get a publisher to publish our content, but find a distributor willing to go into the bushes, go into the weeds, and get this product to the audience that will fully appreciate it or will more fully appreciate it. Until that happens, we need to dance with the ones who brung us. So we need to entertain. We need to create product for the market that we actually have access to, which is a mass market, which is a or direct comic book market. And that's the point that I think is missing from the discussion. I'm sorry, I'm ranting.
Oh, no, no, no. You're good. You're good. Because you mentioned Interscope, right? And Questlove tells this story about the time where his album underperformed and he felt like they were about to get dropped, right? And how it was explained to him at the time the Roots, his band, were signed to Geffen, which is under that
Yep.
same sort of umbrella. Interscope, Geffen,
Yep.
Shady Aftermath, all that, right?
Yep.
And basically it was explained to him like, he thought the Roots were going to be over because Kurt Cobain died, right? And so it's okay, there's no more Nirvana. There's no big bread-winning horse at this label anymore. But the way the label systems had always worked was like you've got an Eminem that pays for like all these other lower tier acts, like the Black
Exactly.
Eyed Peas
Yes.
and so on. And it's like
Yep.
you can afford to carry some of these other titles, and those are the
Absolute
critical.
Batman.
Right, right. So you've
That's
got to have
absolute wet Batman.
exactly.
Absolutely is making room for things that DC wants to do and making opportunities for people who want to do it. But go ahead with your point. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. So it's like you've got like the big blockbuster hit, and the blockbuster success pays for all these sort of critical darlings. And so
Right.
over time, this label earns this prestige because it's like, oh, we're the group that signed the Black Eyed Peas and the Roots and all these Grammy Award winnings and all the darlings. I guess, well, now Interscope's got Kendrick Lamar, and that dude can't do anything without winning a Grammy, right? So it's like, but it's like you've got that. And I think my challenge with all of this is there's always been like, okay, super hits and then like sort of duds. And even now, DC's got like the next level thing. And it's like, you're not going to convince me that Deathstroke the Terminator is going to be like the top seller or a top seller, or that was
But
even
it's
a
a very good book.
consideration.
I've heard it's a very good book.
I
I
love
won't
to
read
read
it
fleas.
because it's my ex-girlfriend, but I heard it's a very good book.
I've heard the same thing. I
Yeah.
picked up a copy. I haven't read mine yet. But it's like there's no way in my mind that the consideration was, oh, we got to put a Deathstroke book out because it's going to do big numbers. It's like, no, we did a
Right.
Deathstroke book because we wanted to do a Deathstroke book.
Yes.
Right. In the same vein, right? Like I was just reading this comics journal from 1993, which is weird that I have a magazine. It's like as old as I am. But in it, what I love about this interview, by the way, it's like an interview with a million Black creators. Gary Groth does quite the interesting dance with Nabil Haj of Ania Comics, and the height of this whole like Ania versus Milestone media war thing.
I remember that. Yeah.
Right? So that's fun. But the next article is a deep dive with all of the Milestone founders except yourself. And that's interesting because Michael
Yes,
Davis
because I'm
does.
Jermaine. You understand,
Right, right, right.
including Jermaine. Yes,
So,
I'm Jermaine. Yeah,
right.
go
So,
ahead.
so they, all my brothers, including Jermaine, but,
Yes. Yes, I love all my partners, including Jim Owsley, Christopher Priest. Yes. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, you're good. But it's interesting to me because I've not seen very many articles where it's all four of them. Usually Mike Davis is like off somewhere,
Right.
but
Right.
he's there being himself. But one of the points that's made, they were talking about, okay, why did you guys go to DC? And Derek Dingle talk and Dennis Cowan, I can't remember who the quote's attributed to, but he basically makes the point that like, well, DC's got Vertigo and they've got these other initiatives. And so
Mhm.
seeing the diversity in their line made us feel more comfortable, like this is a home for us as well.
Right. Right.
And so at a
And
time like
also discussions were happening. I don't know so much that we went to DC or DC came to us, but Paul was having discussions. I was on staff at DC at the time.
mhm,
I was having discussions with Paul one on one. Dennis Cowan was having discussions with Paul one on one. This is something that Paul really wanted done and really wanted to do. But go ahead.
yeah. And so I guess that's the hang up that I have with all this, right? Like, I wouldn't go as far as to call a corporation racist because corporations
But
aren't
that's the
people.
vibe I'm getting from some of this is where they're just going, they're not outright saying it,
Yeah.
but there's this implication and and I just want to point out that like the number one mission of DC Comics or Marvel Comics is to keep the lights on.
Right.
Okay, that's number one. Number two is I know these people. These people are my friends. Okay, now do I get my feelings hurt if I get passed over for this next level stuff that I didn't even know was coming?
Mhm.
Yeah, of course. Because why? Because everybody wants to go to the party and everybody wants to be included. But there's only but so many seats at the table, and and sooner or later they they have to take the best guess that they can about like what's going to work or what projects are going to work.
Mhm.
And the hard and the hard and cruel truth is it's tough. It's tough to sell characters of color. It's tough to sell female characters. It's tough. That's the truth. Maybe nobody wants to say that, but that's the truth. Okay, so they're looking at saying, well, what do we think will work? And I think that what should be happening, I don't know that it's not happening. I don't work there anymore, but what should be happening at Marvel and DC, in addition to what do we think is working, they need to be solving the problem of the distribution. They need to go, look, there are billions of dollars to be made in the Latino community. Why isn't there a Spanish language Miles Morales comic being published in the United States? That to me is like is just that's a gimme. That's an easy that's just that it couldn't be easier, and put that in bodegas and put that in, in places, where the kids can get them, where reach that community. There's billion. I mean, Brandon, I mean with a B. There's so much money being left on the table, because we won't find a way out of the direct market, which is not to impugn the direct market. These people are important. These retailers, these people are vitally important to us. So I'm not trying to put them out of business. I'm just saying that there's a whole bunch of people who never set foot in those shops, and we're not making enough of an effort to talk to them. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I was also reading a different 20-year-old magazine from 2005 in which Dwayne is doing like this whole career retrospective. And they're asking him, okay, well, if you were doing Milestone today, like what would you do? And his
Hmm.
response was, I don't think Milestone could be done today because we rely too much on the direct market and it's just not going to support an experiment like this. Um,
I really love how Dwayne just comes along and says, this last like 12 minutes of Priest rambling, I summed it up in one sentence. you know, and that was our relationship. He
mm,
was the smartest guy that I've ever known, and I loved talking to him. I even loved arguing with him, because he was very logical, and we could just kind of like go point counterpoint and so forth. And unlike some cases where people become anger locked and begin to argue for the sake of arguing. That never happened with Dwayne and I.
Mm.
You know, we were you know, advocating for whatever point we had or whatever our position was. And at the end of the day, the best idea won. And sometimes I'd go, you know what, you're right. And sometimes Dwayne McDuffie would stop in the middle of his argument and go, you know what, actually, you're right. You know, and we had a very, very cool relationship. You know, so yeah, you know, I think, you know, he summed it up. That's I think it would be tough to do Milestone today, at least in the way that we did it.
Mhm.
Um, uh, you know, and then, you know, there's probably a lot of other things that I think would be hard to do Deadpool today. I think it'd be hard to do the, you know, the Marvel Knights Black Panther, those first 12 issues.
Mhm.
You know, I introduced this character Everett Ross because Everett, I realized, like I just said, you know, in this ramble that, you know, we have to entertain the market that we have access to. So I gave them a character who could be their ride along character, who could introduce them to this world. And as Everett had his cultural awakening, he brought the audience along with them. But Everett would give voice to all the objections that a white male comic book reader could possibly have to reading this black character. And he was quippy and funny, and he was borderline racist, and sometimes he was over the border racist. You know, but it was just really funny the way we did it. But it also felt really truthful the way we did it. And the word of mouth started going around, like you gotta read this, you gotta see what this outrageous character in Black Panther is saying, you know, and that's how the book took on momentum, and that's how we broke through in this market. If I had just gone in uh, and written sort of a straight ahead, like very serious, you know, Black Panther, which I did, by the way. Issue number one was rejected by Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti, and they made me start again because I wrote the very, you know, and then the jungle cat moves silently through the jungle, and you know, and I wrote this very serious, pompous, you know, Black Panther. They said, no, we don't. No, that's all wrong. We don't want that. So they helped me craft the voice that we ultimately used for the book. Had I written it, had they published that very straight ahead Black Panther, we'd have been dead in the water in 5 issues. You know, so it's just a matter of like, you know, rather than calling the publishers racist or even thinking the publishers are racist, or even asking the publishers like, you know, we want an ongoing black character. Well, yeah, I do too. I get that. I'm on board with that. You know, but at the same time, you have to take sort of the broad view and go, okay, how do we make that ongoing black character commercially viable? And let's figure out ways to do that, because right now this is the market we have access to. You know, we can't just create a book for the you know, the aspirational market that we hope to have someday, where we have this, you know, these crowds and crowds of black people going into comic shops, or that we transform the general population of people who go into comic shops who would have a greater appreciation for black or female or LGBTQ plus characters. You know, that's not going to happen overnight. Hopefully we'll get there one day, but right now we have to deal with reality, and the reality is there's this algorithm that, you know, the publishers rely on, and they run the numbers. They got an idea for Banana Man, whatever, and they take Banana Man and they take Scott Snyder and you know, Jim Lee and Banana Man, and they run it through the algorithm, and it spits out a number, and it tells them this book, we predict this. The algorithm says we predict this book is going to sell X number of copies, and that's what they use to make their decision of what to greenlight. And that's just the reality of what we live in now. And you know, I don't know that you know, a lot of the things that we as our community would like to do and like to see from these publishers are going to make that cut.
So I guess that feels like a hopeless answer. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, how do we solution this, right?
Everett
Like,
Ross.
Just put every Ross in every book.
But every Ross in every book, it's not literally Everett Ross, but it's just a matter of adjusting the approach that to adjusting the approach to at least realize that we have to entertain everybody,
Mhm.
and we have to invite everybody to the party, or a retailer or the algorithm. Not forget the retailers. If we don't invite everybody to the party, the algorithm is going to hurt you. You have to deal with that algorithm. There's no getting around the algorithm.
That's fair. That's fair. I think the only thing I could see, right, like cracking that, like, because Miles has like crossover appeal, and I guess it also helps
Yes.
that Miles has this great animated trilogy of films, well, alleged trilogy. The third was going
Well,
to come out
because
at
he
some
now
point.
has this mass market exposure.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, something that like Bronze Tiger does not,
Right.
right?
Right. But I think it's possible, right? Well, I don't know. I don't know what the market is for kids that watched Static growing up, or watched it in reruns or whatever.
Static has mass
But
market.
he's got.
Yeah,
I feel like if anybody's got a shot for DC, it would
it's
be
Static.
Static.
Yeah,
So
hundred percent
hopefully
agree.
we get something then,
Yeah,
because
I'll sign off on that. Absolutely. And I think that that Joe Quesada and I got uh, acceptance on the world to come for two reasons. Number one, because he's Joe Quesada. Um, and this is like the first like interiors that he's done in a million years.
Mhm.
So there's an audience that's waiting to see him. The other is that that it's and this sounds awfully arrogant. I don't mean this in an arrogant way, but that it's my Black Panther, that it's Christopher Priest's version of Black Panther, that has a pedigree of being entertaining for everybody, so that it wasn't, I get myself in so much trouble. Why do I come on these things? Um, it wasn't a case of nobody wants to go and buy a product that is accusing them of being a bad person,
Mhm.
you know. And I think particularly in the case of Black Panther, the penchant is sometimes to writers get their hands on the character and they kind of crack their knuckles and they go, now I shall make my statement, and they're so serious and they're like, it's Black Panther and Africa and we're going to teach lessons and we're going to talk about culture and things like that, and all that's well and good, but you can't forget to entertain. You have to entertain. And if there is even a thread of an accusatory tone in there, who wants to pay Marvel $5 to be called names, or you're going to try to accuse me of something, you know. So when Joe and I were working on The World to Come, actually when Joe and I were working on Black Panther, 30 years ago, whenever it was, um, I wasn't trying to make a statement. I was trying to pay my rent, you know. So now we're doing The World to Come. Still not trying to make a statement. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to write the best story I can, and I'm writing a book about legacy. I'm writing a book about what did Jean-Luc Picard say in Star Trek? He said that there are fewer days ahead than there are behind. And I'm writing a book about me, about Joe, about John Romita Jr., about Dan Jurgens. I'm writing a book about a certain era of comics creators. We're not at the end of our line. We're not getting ready to keel over like Panther in issue one. But it's an acknowledgement that we have attained a certain place in our careers that where we can now focus on legacy and we can start, looking back as much as we're looking forward. So there's a kind of ennui, there's a kind of poignancy to The World to Come, that so we're doing metaphors of like Black Panther and passing his kingdom on and who will take over the throne and blah blah blah, and oh no, his son is white, or whatever the story is. So there's all that Game of Thrones stuff going on in the book. but the macro of it is it's a story about us, about, you know, the class of 90 or whatever, about this particular group. It's about me and Dennis and Joe and Palmiotti and all these people, just arriving at a certain point in life in our careers and reflecting on, what our contributions mean, and what is left for us to do, what is yet to come. So that's what the book is about,
Mm.
and I think that people have glommed onto it and accepted it, welcomed it. It's performed well, despite the fact that it's full of black people. And I think that that's what I would encourage all creators to do, to if we want to see more of our characters, find a way to entertain everybody and find a way to speak to the audience that we actually have access to, the audience that's going to move the algorithm. And I think that that's the real solution there. And then ultimately, let's find some new channels of distribution. Let's find some people who want to distribute these comics in areas where these communities actually congregate, where they would have access to it.
Yeah, I'm so curious to see what that looks like post pandemic. Like, I haven't gone to a barbershop for a haircut in at least 3 years. Like, that was one of my
You're
pandemic
kidding,
skills.
really?
No, I learned how to cut my own hair because
Wow.
even before the pandemic, a haircut was like $50, $60. And I was like, what are we
Yeah, it
doing
still
right now?
is. Yeah, yes, sir.
So, but
But
anyway,
I feel like I'm paying my barber for therapy.
uh,
Okay. My barber is also my bicycle coach. I ride road bikes. I know I don't look like it because I'm a big fat guy, so I look like a giant M&M, on the road bike, but I'm a road bike enthusiast. I have two or three, like, pretty high end road bikes,
mhm.
and I ride with a bunch of old guys. And my barber he's the leader of the Mickey Mouse Club. He's the guy that just kicks our butts every Saturday and so forth. So when I go in for the haircut, but I'm also getting, like, bicycle coaching, life coaching, because he's like a bartender. He's got an opinion about everything.
Mhm.
I love this man to death, and I'm happy to support him. Now, why are haircuts so expensive? I'm sure there's a reason. I don't think he's price gouging. I looked around town; everybody's charging about the same amount of money. But you're right; it's crazy. I don't have that much hair.
Yeah,
How
right,
long can it take to cut my hair?
right.
And yet, yeah.
Yeah, and for me, it was all the barbers went to like appointments only. But then it was like I would get to the
Yep.
appointment, and they're like, "Oh man, I'm sorry, I'm running behind." I'm like, "Okay, so what was the point
Yep.
of the appointment?" Like,
Yep.
I got
If you're
small
stuck there
kids,
anyway. Yep.
right? So now my wife is like, "What? Where have you been all morning? I need help with these kids." I was like, "All right, you know what? Let me just save myself 2 hours, cut my own hair. I'm gonna throw a hat on
Uh,
anyway. So if I mess it up, it's low pressure anyway. It's fine." But I do miss the conversations and even just the like we were talking about. I was on somebody else's podcast talking about all Negro comics, number one from like the 40s,
mhm.
and the sort of anthology nature of that book being like, okay, there's no way the thought was one person picks up this book and just enjoys all the stories. Like, it feels like something that you would pick up at a barbershop, and it's like the
Yep.
one guy in one chair loves this story, but then the kid that comes loves this story. And it's like that
Yeah. One guy likes Lion Man, and one guy likes
Ace Harlem.
Ace Harlem.
Right.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I think there's something to that model. I'm just curious as to, like, one, how you even do it. Because all the magazines the shop gets are just mail order. So it's like, is the shop gonna like now order a comic from some big place, or I don't
Well,
know.
I think my scheme. I'm not sure what happened, because at some point I stepped back from Milestone. But what I was advocating for was that we were going to drop ship
Mm,
free comics to barbershops and beauty shops and houses of worship and so forth. Maybe the first 4 or 5 issues, we're going to drop ship free comics there and have blow-in cards
hmm
for subscriptions in there, where they could just, postage paid cards, whatever, like that, where you could just go and you could subscribe, to the thing at some sort of discount or whatever the story is, and you just, You just drop the thing in the mail, and then DC would send mom a bill or whatever the story is. So now, will DC take a loss on that? Absolutely. You're going to hemorrhage money for a year or two. That's how you break through. You got to break through that wall.
Yeah.
You got to. There's no other way. There's no way around it. You got to spend the money. The problem is that I don't know that the publishers have the money to spend anymore. Number one, and if they do, they want to advertise more Batman. I don't know why, but they
Yeah.
just DC, Marvel. There was a time when Marvel all they would advertise is X-Men. I don't know what their heavy advertising dollars go into now, but at one point I was the Spider-Man editor, and I was really frustrated that I couldn't like get a leg up for Spider-Man because every house ad was about, oh, look at the new X-Men book, a book that doesn't need the push,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know what their thought is now, but if they had the advertising dollars, they would put it in the products that they would advertise Absolute Batman,
Hmm.
you know, or
Yeah.
or Matt Fraction Batman, which is completely awesome, by the way.
I love it.
Just plug in that for I do not know Matt, or Jorge, so this is not like, well, he's my buddy, let me plug him. It's a friggin' awesome book. Go run by Matt Fraction Batman. Anyway, so
Listen.
that's the thing. I think that it's the chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
You have to want to get into that business. You have to, was it Jimmy Iovine over at Interscope? I mean, somebody had the vision that said, "There's gold in them hills."
Hmm.
They saw what Master P did. Remember Master P?
Yeah.
How much money that guy made?
That man had gold ceilings in his house before Trump did.
But this is what I'm talking about, where at some point, Jimmy wasn't going, well, it's black people music, it's rap. I don't know if I want to get involved in all that. He was making a financial decision. He was like, there's money out there. We saw this kid. He was a kid at the time. We saw this kid, this Master P guy, just build this fortune from nothing. Let's get in that. Let's get in there.
Yeah.
And somebody, I don't know that there's that much bravery, or where people can get past whatever the social barrier is, whatever the stigma is, whatever the fear is, and punch through that and go, look, there's people out there. When Marvel released the Black Panther film, they discovered an audience they didn't know they had. They had grandmas, going to this movie.
Right.
They had people going to this movie, moms and dads and so forth, who would never even think to go see could care less, don't even know who Thanos is, and
Right.
don't care.
Right.
They went to see this movie. It became almost a religious obligation. It became an obligation for Black people to see this movie. But they're also full of Latino people and Asian people. It became this, like, it was a movie about family. It was a movie about culture, you know, and I can't speak for Marvel, but I think just Christopher Priest thinks, I think it took, the studio completely by surprise, and they weren't set up to do the sequel. They hadn't even signed Jordan to a two-picture deal, which was, like, to me, beyond bizarre, because now you got to pay Jordan.
Right.
You got
Right.
to pay him. And I'm going, and they killed him off. Like, well, what'd you do that for? We never killed off Killmonger. Why'd you kill off Killmonger? But it's like it just took them by surprise, the reception that the movie had, and that the movie made all this money, and became this cultural event. I don't know that they necessarily knew what to do with it. And I'm telling you, comic book people, you can replicate that with the printed books, but you're going to have to go out there and get them, and you're going to have to get past yourselves to do that. You can't listen to the algorithm, because all the algorithm knows is the direct market, and whatever is the standard way of distributing comics. We need a non-standard way to get in there, and unfortunately, the Source, Double XL, Ebony Jet, they've all gone away. So those channels existed where we used to be able to piggyback on those channels. We can't do that anymore. So I don't know what the answer is.
Mm.
If I did, then somebody would hire me to be a publisher, and they're not going to do that. you know. But I think that they are leaving, potentially, millions of dollars on the table by not trying to expand, by not trying to open another artery into communities that, how do you not tap into this audience that went to see Black Panther? There millions of people went to see Black Panther. How do you not tap into them? How do you not even try to talk to these people? It's kind of perplexing to me.
It was the first $1 billion superhero movie. And
It's the first $1 billion movie starring a mostly Black cast too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like,
that was the thing that got me, where I was like seeing us on the screen, but you're also seeing all that money, where a studio banked all that money on us
right.
showing up, and I'm ashamed to admit, but like Nate Moore is the he's still the executive producer that still works with these films, but he executive produced this film and Captain America: Civil War, and I was consulting on the film, and I was talking back and forth with Nate about when they were trying to figure out the plot for the first Black Panther movie, and I said, Nate, I'm a little concerned, and he says, why? I said, well, I don't know if anybody's going to show up for this. I mean, it's a Black superhero, and I really don't know if anybody's going to show up for it. And Nate laughed. He's on the phone, and he just laughed, and he said, "Yeah, they're going to show up." And he was right, and I was wrong. I mean, and I think that it was all, if not all, it was like mostly word of mouth. If you think about it, I don't think it had much to do with Marvel's marketing, with the studio's marketing, or with Disney's marketing. I don't think it had much to do with the commercials or YouTube or interviews or, the cast showing up on, Jimmy Kimmel or whatever. I think that the audience, they just heard Black Panther movie. We're going.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it was.
And it was just word of mouth. It was like, they couldn't wait. They couldn't wait.
And
yeah.
The talk online was like, what are we wearing to the Black Panther?
Right. What are we wearing?
What are we wearing? That was such an amazing experience going to see that film.
It was a real cultural event.
Yeah.
But I don't know that Marvel understood that. I think on some level they put that out as just another in their franchise, and they figured it would do a bit of business or whatever, and then maybe way down the road, maybe we do another one. I don't think they were ready for the wave that hit, and that's why it took them so long to get Wakanda Forever, because Ryan had already committed to these other they let him commit to these other projects.
Right.
Whereas, if they had anticipated that it would land with this kind of thunder, I think that they would have, encouraged him or wanted him to juggle his calendar around a bit. But by that time, he'd already committed to doing these other projects.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen.
And now, of course, he's Ryan Coogler. By the way, coolest guy you ever meet. I got to hang out with him a little bit. And, I know this sounds stupid, but you never know he was Ryan Coogler. He's so unassuming. Mm-hmm. I mean, you wouldn't even know he's in the room. And then when you talk to him, he's like he's just this guy sitting here, and he talks like a regular guy, and he dresses like a regular guy, and he got arrested like a regular guy, and and I was like, Ryan, next time you come to town, look, just write the check to me. I'll take it to my bank where they know me. and we'll solve the problem for you. But I just I couldn't be. He couldn't have been a more agreeable and decent and nice person to hang out with. Just the complete opposite of Hollywood snob. Just a really down to earth guy.
Yeah, he certainly comes off that way. So, man, I'm running low on time. There's a few things I was going to get into that I will no longer, but
Vampirella.
We're certainly going to talk about Vampirella. Before we do, though, you also recently wrapped up Sonia Reborn.
Ah, yes.
And I stuck through. My deal is like there's certain covers I'm just not bringing home. I can't do it. So I had to go in. Instead of just subscribing to the series, I got to go in on FOCs and be like, all right, which is like the least egregious cover Give me that
I
one.
have no control over the. This is a fight I've been losing for a couple of years now. But
Yeah.
go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I'll just tell Nick to like print a blank cover for every comic, and then that well, it should be good. But nah. So, but I stuck through the end of Sonya Reborn, and I must say it was great. It was great all throughout. But the one question I have, right, like the without completely spoiling the book for those who haven't read it yet, Sonya is well, it's we're following this young lady named Margaret who has found herself in quite the precarious situation. She's in a workplace affair. She feels jilted. She wants to take revenge, and but she doesn't really have the nerve to carry out her revenge plot. And through a series of unfortunate events, she falls and wakes up as Red Sonya. Like,
Yes,
you
which
know,
is based on a Robert E. Howard story called "Children of the Dark," People of the Dark,
hmm,
1932. That's about a man who falls down a rabbit hole and wakes up in Hyboria and discovers he is Conan the Barbarian. And he has no idea how he got there, and he has no idea how to be Conan the Barbarian. But go ahead. But that's basically the gist of the story. Yeah.
yeah. So, all she learns all the things she has to learn. She finds herself in the middle of a conflict. And ultimately, because the question of the series is this Maggie having a Sonya experience? Is it Sonya having a Maggie experience? What's the deal? And basically Maggie has to embrace that she is Sonya
Yes.
after,
If she wants to survive,
if she
yes.
right. And so she
Hmm.
basically has to find that killer instinct that she did not have basically the whole series, but she finds it to conclude things. And why was it important for her to find that and not the other way around? Like, why was it important for her to be the savage as opposed to Sonya being civilized or what have you?
Well, because I think that if we leaned into the other direction, where like, hey, this is Sonia having a Maggie experience, you know, the stakes are different. Sonia's life would not necessarily be in danger if she was, and I'm just going to try to sleep through this and wake up in 2026 as Maggie. Um, with Maggie as Sonia, she has this squire, this little kid that's following her around, and usually you have like a ride along character who kind of trains the audience, who teaches the audience what the premise of the story is and how the characters function. In Sonia Reborn, Sonia, the lead character, she's the ride along character. She has no idea. She doesn't know how to ride a horse. She doesn't know how to use a sword. She doesn't know how to use the bathroom in Hyboria. She's dealing with disease and she's dealing with all these this clash of values. So the kid is teaching her, and is chastising her at times and trying to get her to lead along. So if Sonia embraces Margaret, there's less stakes. There's like her life really isn't in danger. Maggie has no choice but to embrace Sonia because she's in a world full of wizards and warlords and big burly men who would kill her or rape her, without hesitation, and monsters that charge out of the woods when you least expect it. Sonia, she has no choice, and that's kind of the point that the kid is making at some point. It's like, you have to, uh, uh, you're going to have to embrace this, and you're going to have to become Red Sonia, or you're going to die. It's that simple, and that was pretty much the choices we gave her. I should add that we're just done with part one. This thing is actually 12 issues,
Oh,
so we'll see the other six next year.
okay, nice. So yeah, I just thought it was beautiful that, given all these things that like life just seems to be happening to Maggie. And but like by the end of this thing, she's gotta like happen to life. And I thought that
Well,
was
also the point is that Maggie, we start out with this thing where Maggie and she falls down a rabbit hole, and the expectation of the reader is that Maggie is this, sweet girl from Liverpool or from London or wherever she's from,
mhm,
and but it's kind of like that J.J. Abrams series Lost,
mhm.
where you started having these flashbacks and flash forwards. You had these flashbacks to what their life was like before they got stranded on that island. So there's a B story that runs through the whole series where we're getting glimpses of what Maggie's life was like before she fell down a rabbit hole and became Red Sonia.
Mhm.
And as the series progresses, you start to realize that Maggie was not actually a very good person. you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
and the fact is, it's like, what the Bible says, for all has sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, right? So it's like, I'm not actually saying that Maggie was a bad person. I'm just saying that, we confound the expectation that she was a good person.
Yeah.
That there was a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Just as with Sonia, there's a little bit of this and there's a little bit of that. That was the fun part about it, that to flesh the Maggie character out. Not only are we building Red Sonia, but we are building out the Maggie character and making Maggie herself very interesting. Spoiler alert, it's not a big spoiler, but at the end of the series, she gets booted out of Hyboria and wakes up back in our time, and she's miserable because she realizes she has no life here,
Mm.
that she only felt alive, truly alive, when she was in Hyboria. So part two is, how does she get back there?
Mm.
So I just want to add real quickly that the Red Sonia purists hated hated this book. I mean, as much as they wanted to kill me over the White Panther,
Uh-huh.
oh my God, Maggie, Sonia, these folks, they can't stay. I'm hiring bodyguards. They're like, you suck, you suck. They're really mad that I'm not Gail Simone.
Mm.
And I haven't been Gail Simone in a long time. So I'm just like, when Dynamite approached me to do this, I said, well, I got one idea. This is the idea I got. And actually, I thought that they had turned me down, and I had turned my attention to other things, and it was like probably months later where they, I got this call. It's like, okay, well, where's issue number one? Issue number one of what? So Red Sonja. It's like, I thought you turned me down. I thought you thought it was a wacky idea, but somehow I don't know what happened, but somehow I ended up doing it. But I had a lot of fun doing it, and I'm looking forward to getting back on that particular horse again when we get a chance to do it.
I love the fact that there was an actual sword store the whole time. That that's probably my favorite gag in the book.
I made a list of things that if I, Christopher Priest, were lost in Hyboria, that I would not know, and that these sword and sorcery comics, they all take this stuff for granted. They never tell you, much about the sword. A sword is a very personal weapon,
Mm.
particularly if you're this woman. It has to be a certain length. It has to have a certain balance. So at some point, you know, Maggie Sonia gets dragged through the woods by this big scaly monster, and she stabs the monster with the sword, and she runs away, and she's screaming. And I love the guy, the kid runs up to her, and he's like, stop yelling, stop all that yelling.
Right.
And she's like, well, there's a big scaly monster. She said, no, you don't understand. If your men hear you screaming, if they know that you're scared, your own men will kill you, because that's how it works here. So she's like, well, let's get out of here. And you go, and the squire goes, yep, we're going to get out of here. But first we need to go find that monster and get your sword. And she's like, the hell with the sword. Let's get out of here. And he's like, no, you got to get your sword back. So I'll get another one. And he goes, another one? What do you mean another what? He goes, another sword. What are you talking about? She goes, well, surely there's a sword store around here somewhere. And the kid is like, sword store? I mean, these things are made by blacksmiths. They're precious. They're really hard to get your hands on. And when you find one that works, you hang on to it like grim. You are going to track that monster down and get that sword back.
Right.
So there's a lot of practical things about how things work. Where do you get these saddles for your horses? Where do you get the horses? How do you make these different arrangements and so forth? How do you go to the bathroom in Hyboria? She gets bit by mosquitoes, and she becomes deathly ill because she's not acclimated to any of these biologies there in Hyboria. There's a long list of things where I said, well, what challenges would I have if I got dumped into Hyboria all of a sudden? And let's just confound this woman with all these things. And these are all things that, I was curious about, even when I was the editor of Conan, even when I was the writer of Conan, um, where I just took this stuff for granted. We never talked about where Conan got his sword. We never saw Conan go to the bathroom. We never asked these questions. So it just made great fun and great practical content for the series.
By the way, you have like 3 omnibus worth of Conan material that Titan is already putting
Yeah,
out. I need to like get my hands on that. I finally.
that's kind of scary. Yeah, that there's that much that I wrote that much of that stuff, and then I wrote I wrote Conan. I wrote a bunch of sword and sword savage sword stories, and then
Mhm.
I wrote Conan the King. I wrote
Right.
the old man Conan. Yeah, and then they canceled it. So
Well, I finally got my hands on one of these, so I don't have to like keep digging through back issues and long boxes to get my Quantum and
ah,
Woody fix.
yeah,
So I'm excited about that. But
I miss the guys. Yeah,
speaking of the guys, well, I'm assuming Quantum and Woody are the guys. But
yes,
speaking of other people that we miss, Doc Bright has a
yes.
new book out with Larry Hama.
The
The
center
Center
holds.
Holds. Have you read it
Yep,
yet?
I have.
I've checked out issue 1. Have not read issue 2 yet, but that was a fun book. I really like it. It's one of
It
those.
was different for Larry. I did not expect that from him. I'm like, is he satirizing the superhero genre, or is he like doing this sort of superhero futurism? You know, it's kind of one of these things where I guess the reader has to make up their mind what is the intent behind this,
I
because it's
don't.
kind of this sort of larger than life, you know, uh, glimpse into the near future where the Constitution now has 32 amendments and and there's all this chicanery going on, but it's just brilliant, brilliant writing and gorgeous art from Doc. I hadn't even realized that he had done this project.
Yeah, it felt like if Watchmen was good, but
Oh, well, you know what? You said it. I didn't. I'm scared of you. Because we have to say Watchmen was brilliant. It's the mark of the high calling. And lavish it with praise.
oh
And I've also said when I was talking to the Blurred Without Fear, to Mr. Ernie there, that Watchmen could not survive the algorithm. That's what I'm talking about. It's not even a
mm,
black white thing. It's the algorithm. I think is doing a lot of harm to creativity
mhm,
because if you're going to do something that is that different and that off model,
mhm,
and Watchmen, you know, just the way the panels were laid out, the way the story unfolded, the construction of the narrative, all that stuff was very kind of like off model from what standard commercial comics were, that in the year that the Watchmen came out. I don't think they could get Watchmen approved today. I'd be surprised if they got it approved today.
yeah. I finally read Watchmen earlier this year, and it will be the subject of a video entitled "Watchmen is terrible and you're all crazy." That's coming out in May.
I don't think it's terrible, but
I don't.
you
I
know.
wouldn't say it's terrible. I think Watchmen is super innovative. It's brilliantly like planned. Like just the thought that goes into each panel, the fact that the covers of each issue are actually the first panel of the book. It just all the details and the back matter. Like there's a lot to enjoy about Watchmen, but none of the things I enjoy about Watchmen are the story. Like I think I just disagree with the premise that like all these people would just be just living in depravity. Like that's
Mhm.
just what superheroes would be. So it's hard to get with. And there's like not a single person in that book that I like that if you want to root for. So
So the question becomes, vis-a-vis, this whole issue about representation. You know, does Watchmen entertain everybody? And I'd have to say no. I think that you have to be. I think you almost have to read a Watchmen commentary to fully appreciate. You know, I think there's a lot of genius in Watchmen.
Mm,
I don't know that it's a very entertaining book, or at
mm,
least a very entertaining book for what what turns me on. What turns me on? Frank Miller Daredevil.
mm.
You know, that's what turns me on.
Yeah.
That stuff, those books were so good that I'd get toward the end of the comic book and I'd start like having like anxiety because I knew like that letters page was coming, and I was like, oh
Right.
no, we're running out of pages. Oh no, oh no, 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 oh, it's the letters page.
Right.
No, and I'm like, no, I gotta wait another 30 days. Frank, you bastard.
Mm,
You know, I think we all have at some point read comics that did that for us that were just unbelievably good. And we hated having to wait those 30 days for the next issue. And we want that experience again. And we go to our LCS every week or every month or whatever it is, uh, picking up our pull list and hoping for that experience and not really finding it a whole lot because, Frank was innovating and doing things that he was allowed to do because he was working for Denny O'Neil, was his boss, right? Um, and I think Jim Shooter was Denny's boss. Um, Actually, I don't know how Denny got Daredevil past Jim Shooter because this was not something that Jim Shooter would have fully appreciated. So
right.
somehow Denny must have like held a gun to Jim's head to get that book out the door. But it was that good,
Mm,
and then we did something with Peter David did something called The Death of Gene DeWolf
mm,
that was kind of in that vein where we took Spider-Man there. And then Mark DeMatteis took Spider-Man there with Craven's Last Hunt and so on and so forth. So these are the kind of things that I personally, this kind of stuff that I kind of like to do,
yeah.
you know. I think that, I would stop short of saying Watchmen was bad. I would think that Watchmen, uh, much like classical music or great jazz,
Mm,
takes a certain level of sophistication to appreciate. And I don't know that it entertains everybody,
mm.
or doesn't entertain everybody as easily as Frank did, or as Denny did.
I think that's a fair point, and I am totally fine not being sophisticated enough. But speaking of, being salty about waiting your 30 days for the next issue, The World to Come, issue 6. Where is this book, sir?
Keep making this joke where I said, well, I think, Joe Quesada is off playing golf with Jim Lee, and when they get done, then both of their books will finally come out,
Okay.
This is in the realm of the artist. All I
Gotcha.
can tell you is I've seen most of the pages of issue 6. Joe has expanded that story considerably,
Mm,
um, much to Marvel's chagrin, I think, because they wanted to put this book out. The pages are absolutely gorgeous. Uh, Spoiler for you, I know this will be a big shock, but at the end of the story, there's a big fight. Now I know that's going to shock you.
right.
A big fight at the end of the story.
I didn't
No,
see us
you
building toward
know.
that at all.
So he's throwing the kitchen sink at this thing. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's worth the wait. I think FOC on it now is early May.
Okay.
So I assume the book will be out late May, early June.
Yeah, I saw
But
the.
it is coming out. I've been done, so don't even look over here. I've been done. Okay, this is Joe, but it's worth the wait. He's just really thrown himself into it.
I've seen the hardcover got pushed back to November, which will make it
Wow.
a great Christmas gift. I'm gonna see if Tyler Smith, who's lettering the book, is a patron of the show. See if I can like sneak a copy out of him somehow.
Oh,
Whenever,
okay.
whenever he
Shout out to
finally gets
Tyler.
those
Yeah, he's
pages,
doing a great job. And
amazing.
wow, I think The World to Come is another book that, I think it's a book that you read it the first time and you have this experience. And then hopefully you go back and reread it and you start to see all the clues that we put right in your face and you didn't notice the first time.
Yeah, it really
You
is a
know,
book
and
that
you
you
have
read.
another experience when you read it the second time around, and you know, yeah, because everybody was yelling about the White Panther, and no one even wondered, why is it snowing?
Yeah.
When Panther dies, it's snowing. Why is it snowing? I don't know. Why is it snowing? You know, so it's like there's all this stuff that's there. I got to tell you, I don't know if it's my favorite moment of the book. I've got a lot of favorite moments in the book. When I say favorite moments, these are things that Joe did that had nothing to do with me.
Mhm.
You know, that just knocked me out. Was there's a scene where T'Chaka, the dad, it's a
Mhm.
flashback to T'Chaka, and he's taking young T'Challa to Hell's Kitchen,
Yep.
and I said my vision of T'Chaka is Denzel Washington in Training Day, and that's if I was running the world, that's who that character would have been in the movie. He would have been more like that,
Uh-huh.
a very tough guy, very authoritarian. You know, so Joe is literally drew him in the Training Day jacket with the gold chains, and they're walking through. You know, if you haven't read this book, you got to. I think it's the 3 or 4, whatever issue it
Mhm.
was. Anyway, but they go to this bodega, which is you know, like a spy satellite of Wakanda that T'Chaka set up in New York to keep an eye on the rubes. You know, so they go into this bodega and they're going inside to talk to their spy master that's working there. And there's this panel where they're walking through the door, and what Joe did is Casada drew one of those little horses that kids ride. You put a quarter in. Remember those? You put a
Uh-huh.
quarter in and you ride the horsey. You know,
Yeah.
he put one of these things outside the bodega, and he drew T'Chaka being dragged. I mean, T'Challa being dragged along by his father, but he's looking at the horse because he really wants to ride that horse, and you know, but he knows better that you know his duty is to Wakanda. You know, and it's just like this is a guy that Joe, who completely understands storytelling and story and subtext and character. And that panel had said so much more about T'Challa and about what his life was like. And really on some level, what a jerk his dad could be at times, you know. And I was just blown away by it. I was like, that is so freaking brilliant. The horse and T'Challa looking at the horse as he's being dragged to the bodega. And I was like, that's just absolutely brilliant. And there's a million other things like that that Joe put into that book, you know, that we'll have to point out at, you know, on the other side, I go, okay, now on page 2, he did this. And on page 2, you missed this part. You didn't see that either, did you?
Was
You know, so
T'Challa
there's just a
wearing an
lot of cool stuff
Outcast
going on in
t-shirt
there.
in the script?
Say again?
I said, was T'Challa wearing an Outcast t-shirt in the script?
No, that's Joe. That's totally Joe.
That's
Yeah.
cool. That's
Hmm.
cool. Outcast is one of my favorites. I actually got to see them in concert. Whenever they did their reunion tour, they were doing they're playing a bunch of festivals, and Andre's wearing like the little onesie with like whatever message on it for the night.
Okay.
That was a fun show. That was a fun
Yeah.
show. I thought, like, I can
Very
retire
cool.
from concerts after seeing this. But so now that we have 2 minutes left in the interview, we can
Thank
talk
you.
about. Well, no problem. We could talk about Vampirella. We've got yet another Vampirella issue 1. This is going to sound like a joke, right? But Priest actually sent me a coverless copy of this book so that I could read, it, and it worked. It worked. I made it past the cover this time, and it's a very well done. It feels very much like an introduction. Like it's a Vampirella #1 that does not feel like it came with a homework assignment at all. But like the story thus far is
Well, basically, you know, well, first of all, for those who have never read Vampirella, if you would like to read it without the cover, you can read it free online. There is a Vampirella sampler that's on my website, and that URL is priest.mx/vampy. That's PRIEST Mary X-ray /VAMPI, and that takes you to our Vampirella sampler that's on there. It's downloadable. You can post that link anywhere you want to post it, and it just introduces you to the characters and the world and the premise and how this series works. Okay. Having said that, the new number one is the perfect jumping on point. It's a perfect place to start. It marks a real tonal change. This starts our volume 8, which is leading up to our legacy issue 700, which will be out late this year or at the beginning of next year. So this is like the drum roll to issue 700. We have a guest artist that we're working with that I'm really excited about. His name is Davis Gettin. And he does a very nice sort of urban Vampirella, which kind of allows me to uh, kind of do a deep dive into like an urban story that feels more like Daredevil or Batman or something like that, where she's sort of, she's going up against, drug cartels, and working for some mysterious benefactor. And it's a story about, it's called Three and a Half Women. And it's a story about these four women that are locked in a trauma bond. And it's Vampirella, her evil twin, Draculina, her bestie, Victory, and a teenager named Katie, who is actually Draculina's alter ego. Draculina and Katie, they have this sort of Billy Batson, Shazam relationship where they kind of share an existence. So it's kind of like these four stories that all collide together as and makes this big event, which I can't tell you is happening, this big event in issue 700 possible. But our issue number one is a perfect place to start, where we are literally bringing each character on stage. You're meeting all the characters in the book. You meet her therapist. She has this funny therapist that who does not believe in vampires and who thinks that she's crazy. Right. So you meet him, and then you start meeting these characters individually one by one, and as they come on stage, and you don't have to know anything about Vampirella. You don't have to ever have read this book before. And if you like, sort of, urban adventure, crime stories, that kind of thing. My Vampirella is really not about the occult. Mm-hmm. Like some Vampirella writers, kind of lean into the occult for some reason. I'm not sure why. But Forrest Ackerman, who created the character, created Vampirella to be a science fiction. It's a science fiction concept. She's a character from another planet, and her species, the attributes of her species, are reminiscent or invoke, characteristics of vampires. But she herself is not, technically speaking, she is not a vampire. She's not undead. She doesn't worship Satan, or anything like that. She is a single girl trying to make it on her own in the big city. She just happens to be a vampire from outer space, and that complicates, her life. But she wants what everybody wants. She wants life and love. She wants purpose, that kind of thing. So the series is poignant and it's scary. It's full of action, adventure, and then it's funny, so it has all these little elements to it. I tend to tell people I think it's the best series that not enough people are reading. So I think issue number one is a perfect opportunity for people to kind of sample it, see what what you got going on there. And like I said, all things about the character and her backstory and so forth will eventually unfold in the course of telling this story. But yeah, it's out. I'm really happy with number one. I just finished issue 5. I'm really, really. I think Davis and I are really cooking, and really looking forward to our ramp up to issue 700.
Yeah, I will say, like, this new number one, I feel like, I don't know. It seems like it's Priest's job to tell you this is a good jumping on point. Like, maybe I'm a more reliable source to tell you that number one is a good jumping on point, right? But it's what I loved about the issue, without spoiling for those of you who have not read it yet, which is all of you, since this book doesn't come out till April 22nd. But it does a great job of setting the stage for each character. Like, even the fact that, like, Draculina looked like Vampirella with like a bad wig, right? Like even that's a play and explained in the book. And in the most hilarious way possible, of course. Like I do hope that somehow Sam Jackson gets to play this psychiatrist because
The
that's
doctor,
all I
yeah.
hear in my head. But
Yeah, that's his voice,
yeah,
and um, there is a Vampirella. It's going to be either a series or a feature that's in development. I think there is actually a showrunner attached. But these things draw out and they take time and so forth. But I can't say that they'll get Sam. I don't know who they'll get. I know that Sam's people will get a call.
mm,
I don't know if they can afford Sam. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is, but that would be awesome. I think that would be great. And yeah, it's I really think that we're doing a really good book here. I think sometimes it's overshadowed by the cover. Uh, I think that there's, not to say there isn't beautiful art on the covers and so forth, but I think that there are people who are art collectors who I've met people at shows who have like 4 and 5 copies of the same book because they want all the covers because they're these beautiful covers, and then this one is in foil, and then this one is in this one is is a virgin cover. Pardon the pun on there. But they've never read the book. They don't know who the characters are. They don't know what goes on in the book. And I'm like, read the book. You've got 1 million copies of this thing. Read one of them.
right.
So there's people who collect the covers, and then there's people who read the comic book. I would like more people to do both, or to do what we can here, because I just feel like I know it sounds weird, but I'm incredibly proud of the book, and I feel like I just figured out how to write her last week. I think that this new beginning is a marked departure from what we've been doing before, where it's just tighter and a little bit grittier, and it just has this wonderfully interconnected story that that builds momentum as we move toward the end of the year and the Gala 700 issue. So anyway, check us out, or at the very least, check out priest.mx/vampy. Check out the free preview on online.
I think you'll enjoy it. With my apologies to those of you who've been buying Priest Vampirella for the last 3 years since he just learned how to write her last week. But hey,
Well, I think we did a lot of good work over the last 3 years too. I just think that particularly with the new guy with Davis, with Ergun Gunduz, who's our regular Vampirella guy, we are skipping him ahead to issue 700. So 700 is a much bigger, sort of more magical, bigger stage that is playing out on. With Davis, I really get to have her like running through Brooklyn, chasing bad guys and stuff, and that's a lot of fun. And he does such a wonderful job with that. I think he's kind of inspired by Alan Davis. This stuff, a lot of it in places looks a lot like Alan Davis,
mm,
who I also had the pleasure of working with at Harris Comics when they had the Vampirella license. So this is just exciting, and I'm writing for Aragon. I'm writing the 700 thing while I'm writing the stuff for Davis. So I'm kind of doing 2 issues of Vampirella a month here, but I'm just having a blast, and I just want to invite as many people as I can to the party.
yeah, man. Well, listen, if you guys want to join the party, the FOC for issue 1 of Vampy did pass on March 30th. So if you want a copy, you're gonna have to strong arm somebody at a comic shop to get one when it comes out April 22nd. But then you can just go to the counter and put yourself down for the rest of them. And they'll just be there automatically, and those pre-orders certainly will tell Dynamite to keep the series going, and guarantee you your seat at the table to read it. Now, I mean, gosh, we went through so much that you've done in the last 7-8 months since we spoke last. And I have to imagine there's a lot more where that came from. Like what teases, what things should we be on the lookout for?
Not anything that I can really talk about. That's
Mm,
unfortunate, but I'm waiting on green lights for there's a project we're setting. Actually, there's two projects that are being set up at DC. There's a project being set up at Marvel. Obviously, the world to come, the finale that's coming out eventually, um, and uh, and stuff that another project that I'm not allowed to talk about because last time I did, I got kind of slapped. That it's with a independent company, so I got independently slapped. So we can't really talk about that either.
all right.
But oh, we can talk about The Last Spartan. TheLastSpartan.com is where you can find this. This is a graphic novel
Hmm.
that I did with the actor Tyler Mane, who plays Sabretooth in Deadpool Wolverine. Um, and we did a book that adapted a novel that had to do with human trafficking. And a portion of the proceeds goes to benefit uh, uh, wow, I'm having a senior moment now, but it goes to benefit a charity that helps to fight human trafficking and helps to find lost ones and help brings them home, bring people home. So the Last Spartan, actually, it's called The Last Spartan Red Tape.
Mm.
So you could probably Google that, but it's at thelastspartan.com. I think it's being distributed by one of the major distributors. I'm not sure which one,
Mm.
but I think it's in comic shops or it's going to be in comic shops. And it's a great little yarn, about an ex-biker who is kind of dragged into hunting down human traffickers to retrieve a lost child. And it's just a wonderful book, and we had a great time doing it. So that's out there. I can talk about that. And then
Nice.
there's five or six things that I can't talk about because they're not ready they're not ready to market them yet.
Mm. Now, y'all give me just a second. I want to show you this book, and I want to do that because I somebody hit me. Somebody in the publicity team for this
There it
book
is.
did reach out to me about this, and I didn't catch the email while the Kickstarter campaign was running. So I owe somebody this little bit of promotion here. So The Last Spartan Red Tape. It looks like it's available right now. You didn't have to. The Kickstarter wasn't the end all be all. So you can
Right.
get the soft cover for 30. You can get the hardcover for 50. And they've even got a script book, which I don't know that I've ever seen a priest script. So
I'll
that's
send you a
exciting.
ton of them. I got them all. I got a bunch of them.
Oh,
But yeah,
that's
they did a script book. That's really impressive. It's kind of like, script to art. You can see how the process went and so forth. So yeah, they did a good job with it.
that's
And
exciting.
just beautiful covers and there's beautiful art going on inside there and lots of little snarky dialogue from me.
It looks nice. It looks nice. So yeah. So with that, priest, it's been a pleasure. It always is. You can stand me up two more times for the next one. I'd still come back. I'd still have you back
I'm so
anytime.
sorry. Yeah.
You're good. You're good. So again, you guys go grab Vampirella #1. If you didn't buy the first 5 issues of The World to Come, go ahead and order issue 6, right? And then pre-order that hardcover. It'll be a nice little stocking stuffer. I imagine the issue 6 is going to be quite the doozy, right? So,
Well, there's a big fight.
right, yeah, there's at least a big fight, and I presume we get to see this White Panther get beat up or something. Maybe that's incentive, right? Hey, by the way, Morgan Hampton, the advice that I gleaned from this conversation was you got to give Static a white baby, and then we can sell all these issues. All right. If there's any lesson to learn from this hour and a half, that's the lesson.
He's gonna love that.
Give Static a white baby. It'll be all good. We'll get Nick to draw the cover. It'll be great. All of it. Okay. That's what we're going to do.
Outstanding. Yeah, he's gonna love that one.
So,
Shout out to Morgan.
shout out to Morgan Hampton. I love that guy. But yeah, so with that, you guys stay tuned to the channel. There's a lot more to come, and we'll see you in another one soon. Until then, Stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.